Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today we are strapping in for, well, a 1,000-year journey. We're diving into one of dark fantasy's most complicated and richly detailed sagas, the eternal war between the Belmont clan and Count Dracula. You know it, Castlevania.
Oh, yeah. It's way more than just gothic horror, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's this, sweeping, dark fantasy chronicle. But if you've ever tried to piece together the story yourself, you know the headache.
Definitely.
The games were released all out of order. You get prequels jumping 400 years back, then interquels filling gaps. It creates this incredibly dense, almost labyrinthine history. Bloodlines, curses, resurrections.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It really is a tangled web, spanning centuries. But that's exactly why we're here today. We're going to try and chart the main narrative continuity, what fans generally call the Igarashi timeline.
Right, exactly. We're focusing on that main canonical story to hopefully give you a clear roadmap through the Dark Ages and all the way up to almost modern times.
So our mission, simple, but kind of profound, actually. We want to trace this thing chronologically. Start at the tragic origin in the 11th century, follow it all the way to the definitive conclusion in the 21st.
And along the way, pull out those core aha moments. We want to understand why. Why did this conflict become eternal? Why did this one family get saddled with 1,000 years of sacrifice? And, how did the battle eventually become more than just physical fighting?
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this and jump straight into the genesis. Right back to 1094, the moment of loss that really kicks this whole tragedy off.
Right. So the saga doesn't actually start with a vampire hunter. It starts with two friends, Leon Belmont and Matthias Cronquist, and this shared just brutal grief. The year is 1094.
Okay.
Leon's this noble baron, a celebrated knight known for his honor, and Matthias is his closest friend, a brilliant strategist, someone Leon really relied on.
And they both face loss but react so differently. Leon, he sort of channels the cruelty of the medieval world, his pain, into this sense of protective duty.
Right. But Matthias, he's completely shattered. His beloved wife, Elizabetha, dies suddenly, and he just collapses, bedridden, consumed by despair. And this loss, this specific loss, becomes this sort of metaphysical engine for all the darkness that follows.
Because he channels his grief differently.
Totally differently. Into this pure, almost incandescent nihilistic rage against God.
Not humanity, against God.
Yeah, at this point, it's God. He loses his faith completely and vows revenge, not on people, but on the Creator, for allowing suffering like Elizabetha's death. And that's when he starts manipulating things, pulling strings to get the power he needs for that cosmic vendetta.
And that starts with betraying Leon.
The ultimate betrayal. Matthias tells Leon that his betrothed, Sarah Trantoul, has been abducted, kidnapped by this really ancient, powerful vampire, Walter Bernhardt.
And the church won't help?
Nope. Denied help by the organized church, Leon does something incredibly defining. He gives up his title, his lands, his whole aristocratic life, and charges alone into Walter's lair, the Forest of Eternal Night. That's selflessness. That's the Belmont core right there.
So he goes in, but what weapon does he have? Not the famous one yet, right?
Not yet. He meets an alchemist, Rinaldo Gandolfi, who gives him the Whip of Alchemy. It's powerful, sure, magically prepared, but it's not the vampire killer. Not yet.
He uses it to rescue Sarah.
He does. But the victory is instantly hollowed out. She's been bitten. She's dying, succumbing to the vampire's curse.
Oh, no. And this is where it gets even darker, isn't it? The creation of the whip.
Yeah, this is the first horrific moral choice in the saga. Rinaldo explains the awful truth. The Whip of Alchemy can only be perfected, made holy enough to kill pure evil like Walter, through the ultimate voluntary sacrifice.
Involuntary.
It needs a pure soul bound willingly to its leather. Sarah, tainted by the bite but still pure of heart, she begs Leon to use her soul to take it.
Wow.
In arguably the most profoundly tragic act of the entire 1,000-year story, Leon performs the ritual. He sacrifices the woman he loves to forge the only weapon capable of fighting this rising darkness. The Whip of Alchemy becomes the vampire killer, forged in just absolute searing loss.
He confronts Walter, destroys him with this new terrible power, but then Matthias shows up.
Right, and the devastating truth comes out. Matthias orchestrated everything. The kidnapping, Walter biting Sarah, her sacrifice, all of it. Specifically so he could acquire Walter's incredibly powerful vampire soul.
How does he even do that? Absorb a soul?
With a dark alchemical artifact, something called the Crimson Stone. Using that, Matthias absorbs Walter's soul and boom, he transforms. He becomes the immortal vampire we eventually know as Dracula.
But his motivation isn't just power for power's sake. It's still about Elizabetha.
Still about Elizabetha. His goal remains singular. enact an eternal curse against God for taking her. He offers Leon eternal life too, but Leon refuses. Disgusted, he curses Matthias for the betrayal.
And as Matthias vanishes, swearing his eternal vengeance against God,
Leon confronts death itself, literally the entity, death, and makes his own vow, the one that echoes down the centuries. The Belmont clan will hunt the night.
So it's not just good versus evil. It's born from shared trauma, splitting into these two paths. Leon's selfless duty versus Matthias's destructive nihilism.
Exactly. But the mechanics here, the how of the immortality, are crucial. You asked about the Crimson Stone.
Yeah, so Dracula's resurrection cycle, it's not just him being a super powerful vampire who comes back.
Yeah.
There's a reason.
Absolutely. It's the Crimson Stone. That's the key. It's the metaphysical engine enabling the soul absorption, yes, but also his cyclical regeneration. Without that stone, he's powerful, but maybe not eternally recurring in the same way. With it, he can cheat death over and over.
Okay, gotcha.
And this also explains death's role, capital D death, which people often misunderstand.
Right. I always just figured Death was Dracula's loyal number two, like his main henchman.
It seems that way, but the source material makes it clear. Death isn't loyal to Matthias Dracula personally. He's magically bound to whoever wields the Crimson Stone.
Wow.
He's like a cosmic force, an elemental functionary obeying this unbreakable alchemical law. It implies, crazily, that if Leon had somehow gotten the stone, Death would have had to serve the Belmonts.
That's wild.
Yeah. Matthias would never let that happen, obviously. But the point is, Death served the power source, the Dark Lord's office, not necessarily the individual holding it at the time. That distinction, it colors the next 1,000 years.
1,000-year war, driven by a broken heart, fueled by grief turned to rage, and maintained by a magical rock-binding death itself. That is, that's an epic foundation. Brutal, but epic.
Okay, let's jump forward, way forward, 4 centuries. Matthias Kronfist, now fully Dracula, has settled in Wallachia. And for a little while, amazingly, he finds a measure of peace.
Peace. Dracula. How?
He marries a human woman, Lisa. She's a kind healer, very compassionate. They have a son, Adrian. And Lisa, she genuinely seems to temper his deep-seated misanthropy. He's almost content.
But you said almost. That doesn't last, does it?
Not at all. It's violently shattered. In 1475, Lisa is falsely accused of witchcraft by an ignorant, fearful mob incited by parts of the church, and she's burned at the stake.
Oh, man. So the very thing that drove him against God initially lost happens again, but this time because of humans.
Exactly. And this isn't just sad backstory. It's the definitive catalyst for the main conflict we usually think of. Dracula's rage, which had been kind of cosmically directed, now pivots hard. It aims squarely, brutally at humanity itself. In 1476, he unleashes a full-scale demonic invasion on Europe.
Total war. So what does humanity do, especially the church that, kind of caused this?
Well, faced with utter annihilation, the Eastern Orthodox Church has to swallow some serious pride. They turn to the one family they had previously shunned, feared, even exiled for their superhuman strength.
The Belmonts.
The Belmonts. Trevor Belmont, Leon's descendant, answers the call. He takes up the vampire killer. It really highlights the irony, right? The church failed, and now they need the very heroes they ostracized.
So Trevor steps up. This is Castlevania the Third. Dracula's curse, right? And he doesn't go it alone.
No, and that's crucial. His quest is defined by the alliance he builds. It shows that defeating Dracula needs more than just the whip. It takes unity, different kinds of strength.
Okay, so who does he team up with?
First, there's Siva Belnades. She's a powerful sorceress, part of the speaker-nomadic tribe kind of traveling scholars and magic users. Trevor actually frees her from being turned to stone.
And there's a detail about her disguising herself.
Yeah, the sources mention she sometimes disguised herself as a man, likely to avoid persecution during the intense witch hunts happening around that time. Adds a layer to her character, right? Dealing with prejudice even while saving the world.
Definitely. Who else?
Then you've got Grant Danasy, a nimble guy, a pirate, amazing climber. He'd already tried to infiltrate the castle seeking revenge for his family, but got cursed and turned into this demonic guardian thing until Trevor freed him. He's sort of the physical agility counterpart to Sypha's magic.
Makes sense. And the big one, Alucard.
And Alucard, born Adrian Fahrenheit Sapé, Dracula's own Dampier's son, half human, half vampire. He's horrified by his father's genocide.
Why does he turn against him?
To honor his mother, Lisa. Her dying wish was basically, don't hate humanity, Adrian, even if they fear and misunderstand people like me. So he takes the name Alucard Dracula, spelled backward, as this really explicit symbol. He's opposing his father's nihilism, honoring his mother's compassion.
So this team, martial duty, magic, human agility, and even cursed blood fighting itself, they managed to defeat Dracula.
They do. But the victory has immediate, long-lasting consequences. First, Trevor and Suffolk get married.
So that's the connection. Belmont martial prowess meets Belnitz magic.
Exactly. That union infuses the Belmont bloodline with innate magical talent. It's a huge aha moment because it explains why later Belmonts, like Richter or Just, have abilities far beyond just physical strength and whip skills. That magic comes from Sifa's side.
Gotcha. What about Alucard?
Alucard is devastated. He's racked with guilt over killing his own father, even for the right reasons. He decides his cursed blood is too dangerous for the world, so he enters this self-imposed eternal slumber, which of course just sets the stage for his dramatic return centuries later.
But even with Dracula defeated, it's not really over, is it? The curse lingers.
Not at all. Just 3 years later, 1479, Dracula's dying curse is still poisoning the land. Plague, madness, monsters. It's bad. And this brings us to Curse of Darkness.
Right. This one focuses on Hector.
Yeah, Hector. He's a devil forge master. These are humans who can forge demonic servants, innocent devils, from dark magic. Hector had actually served Dracula but left, seeking peace.
But peace is hard to find in Castlevania.
Impossible, it seems. His former comrade, Isaac, another forge master but fanatically loyal to Dracula, tracks him down. Isaac orchestrates the murder of Hector's wife, Rosalie.
Why? Just cruelty.
Calculated cruelty. Isaac does it specifically to push Hector over the edge, to reignite his rage and hatred, hoping to lure him back to Dracula's side through vengeance.
So who stops this? Is Trevor involved again?
Trevor is involved, yes. He's investigating this lingering corruption alongside this really mysterious time-traveling character named Saint-Germain. They start unraveling this plot.
And the villain isn't Isaac.
Isaac's a major antagonist, but the ultimate manipulator is revealed to be Death, disguised as a helpful priest named Zed.
Death again, and he's still bound to Dracula's power even after Dracula's, well, death.
Apparently so. Remember, Death serves the power, the lingering essence tied to the Crimson Stone, and his plan here is insidious. He's trying to use Hector's body filled with rage, hatred, perfect vessel for a premature reincarnation of Dracula.
Cheating the cycle. Trying to bring him back fast, but maybe weaker.
Exactly. A quick, weak return is better than waiting a century, from Death's perspective.
Yeah.
But Hector, he resists. He doesn't succumb to the hate that consumed Matthias centuries before. He defeats Isaac, foils Death's alchemical scheme. He chooses not to become the vessel.
So the key takeaway from Curse of Darkness isn't just about Forge Masters. It's about Dracula's influence continuing even after defeat.
Precisely. It establishes Dracula isn't just a physical threat you kill. He's this fundamental source of metaphysical corruption. His evil actively works towards its own revival, even from beyond the grave. It uses human despair, alchemy, manipulation. The evil is a system, a lingering curse, not just one guy.
Okay, so after that attempted early return is foiled, things quiet down for a bit, until the cycle kicks in properly.
Pretty much. We jump forward roughly a century from Trevor's initial victory. Now, Dracula resurrects, and this really establishes that pattern, the 100-year cycle that defines the conflict for the next few centuries.
And the Belmont for this round is Christopher.
Christopher Belmont, yeah. Trevor's great-grandson. So in 1576, he confronts Dracula. This is the game, The Adventure. And interestingly, the source notes mention his whip was a bit different.
Different how?
It apparently focused on shooting fireballs, but didn't have the classic sub-weapons, the axe, holy water dagger that other Belmonts relied on. Maybe a variation in technique or the whip's abilities at the time.
Interesting. So does he win?
He defeats Dracula in a direct assault, yes. But it's an incomplete victory. Dracula learns, adapts. He manages to escape, not fully destroyed, by turning into mist.
Ah, so it gets away. That's going to have consequences.
Big time. 15 years later, 1591, Belmont's revenge. Dracula capitalizes on not being fully destroyed. And he changes tactics. He starts just attacking humanity broadly and starts targeting the Belmont family directly. This is where the war gets really personal, psychological.
How so? What does he do?
He possesses Christopher's own son, Soleil, right during the boy's coming-of-age ceremony as a vampire hunter. He uses him as a puppet, a host, to regain a physical body.
Oh, that's brutal. Attacking the legacy, the next generation.
Exactly. Christopher, who had actually retired by this point, is forced back into action. He has to save his corrupted son, navigate these 4 elemental castles that appeared, and face the horror of fighting his own child's possessed form.
Does he succeed?
He does. He frees Soleil, and this time, he destroys Dracula completely. The sources call this the first really complete, century-long destruction of Dracula since Trevor's time.
Okay, so that sets the clock ticking for another 100 years, roughly. Which brings us to the 17th century, and maybe the most famous, Belmont.
Simon Belmont, absolutely, the icon. So 1691, the original Castlevania. Simon storms the castle, defeats Dracula in that classic showdown. But Dracula, even as he's dying, he pulls one last devastating move.
He doesn't just die.
He uses his final breath, his last bit of power, to inflict a fatal curse directly onto Simon, a personal attack. It shows Dracula's mastery of not just demonic power, but psychological warfare too.
So Simon wins, but he's cursed, dying.
Exactly. The victory is immediately tainted. He's got this ticking clock. 7 years later, 1698, we get Simon's quest. Simon is slowly dying from this curse.
Is there a cure?
There is, but it's incredibly grim and unbelievably risky. He learns the only way to cleanse himself is to find the 5 scattered body parts, the relics, of Dracula's corpse.
Wait, find Dracula's parts? Why?
To resurrect him, he has to take these relics back to the ruins of Castlevania and intentionally bring the Dark Lord back himself in a spectral form.
That's insane. He has to risk unleashing the very evil he fought just for a chance to cure himself. And if he fails...
If he fails, the curse kills him anyway, and Dracula's back immediately. It's this agonizing moral test, a desperate gamble. Simon's journey across this hostile version of Transylvania is just torturous.
But he does it.
He does. He gathers the relics, resurrects the spectral Dracula, and destroys him again. This final act purges the curse from his own body. It's this intense, literal battle against the darkness within him, fueled by Dracula's malice. Shows the immense personal toll of being a Belmont.
So this whole era with Christopher and Simon, it really messes with that neat 100-year cycle, doesn't it?
It does. You have the century-ish revivals in 1576 and 1691, which fit the pattern. But then Dracula comes back after only 15 years for Belmont's revenge, and Simon has to resurrect him after just 7 years for Simon's quest.
So the cycle isn't a strict rule.
Exactly. It clarifies the cycle isn't like a law of physics. It's more the natural default time for Dracula's power to coalesce and rebuild after a full, proper defeat.
But it can speed up.
Dramatically. Either through an incomplete defeat, like Christopher's first battle, where Dracula escaped his mist, or through specific personal plots, like the curse Dracula laid on Simon. The frequency of his return starts to reflect either how strong the last Belmont was, or maybe, more darkly, just how malicious Dracula is feeling.
It makes the threat feel much more unpredictable and personal.
Totally. Dracula's learning. He's attacking their families, their bodies, their minds. It's foreshadowing even deeper psychological battles to come.
Okay, moving into the 18th century, you mentioned earlier that the union of Trevor Belmont and Siffa Belnades had a big impact down the line. Is this where we see it pay off?
This is exactly where we see it, big time. The 18th century introduces arguably the most powerful generation of Belmont warriors yet, showing the full benefit of that combined martial and magical lineage.
So who's first?
50 years after Simon's whole ordeal with the curse, we meet his grandson, Just Belmont, and Just fully inherited Siffa's magical affinity. He's not just strong, he's magically gifted.
What's his story? Is it Harmony of Dissonance?
That's the one, yeah. 1748. Just is searching for his kidnapped friend, Lidi. He's accompanied, sort of, by his other friend and rival, Maxim Kashin. But Maxim is acting really erratically, suffering from amnesia. Something's clearly wrong with him.
And the castle itself is weird in this one, right? 2 castles.
Yeah, that's the core mechanic and plot point.
Yeah.
Just discovers Castlevania doesn't just exist in one dimension this time. It's somehow split, existing in 2 overlapping spaces simultaneously. A physical Castle A and this chaotic, weird, spiritual Castle B.
Why? What's causing that?
It's Maxim. The dual castles are basically a manifestation of his fractured psyche.
How?
Well, the tragic truth comes out. Maxim was deeply jealous of just inheriting the Belmont birthright, the vampire killer. He tried to prove his own worth by gathering Dracula's scattered remains himself, maybe hoping to destroy them permanently or something.
Shades of Simon's quest, but with a different motivation.
Kind of. But instead of finding a cure, Maxim got overwhelmed. He was possessed by Dracula's lingering evil spirit, so that chaotic spiritual Castle B, that's a physical reflection of the madness and the dark power that consumed Maxim when he tried to mess with forces way too big for him.
So Darius has to deal with the castle and his possessed friend.
Pretty much. He uses his combined abilities, the whip skills, and his inherited Belnades magic to navigate both castles and ultimately prevent Dracula's full resurrection through Maxim. It really showcases the power of that fused bloodline.
And that power peaks with the next hero, Richter.
Richter Belmont, yeah. Introduced in 1792. Richter was widely considered one of the absolute most powerful warriors in the entire thousand-year Belmont lineage, just peak Belmont power.
This is Rondo of Blood, right? Classic. What's the setup?
The Dark Priest Shaft, remember that name, orchestrates Dracula's resurrection yet again. And to lure Richter out, Shaft kidnaps his beloved Annette and several other women from the village, including a young girl named Maria Renard.
Ah, Maria. She becomes playable too, doesn't she?
She does. Once Richter rescues her, she joins the fight. And she's got this totally different playstyle. Super agile, uses powerful magic based on animal spirits. It adds another dimension to the fight. Richter, with Maria's help, ultimately triumphs. Defeats Shaft, defeats Dracula. Peak Belmont victory.
So the strongest Belmont achieves a great victory. Surely things are good for a while.
You'd think so. But the peace lasts only 4 years. 4 short years. And then comes the absolute catastrophe of the entire saga. 1797, Symphony of the Night.
The fan favorite. What happens?
Richter Belmont vanishes. Just gone.
Yeah.
And then Castlevania reappears. But this time, there's no Belmont rising to challenge it. The generational promise is broken. Something is deeply wrong.
So who steps up if Richter's gone?
This dark resurgence is what finally awakens Alucard from his centuries-long slumber. He senses his father's castle has returned, but without a Belmont opposing it. He rises, determined to end his father's curse once and for all.
And he meets Maria again.
He does. He enters the castle and encounters an adult Maria Renard, who's desperately searching for the missing Richter. She doesn't understand what happened to him.
And Alucard finds out.
Alucard's investigation leads him deeper and deeper into the castle until he reaches the throne room. And there he discovers the shocking, devastating truth. Richter Belmont, the mightiest Belmont, is sitting on the throne. He's the new lord of Castlevania.
No. How? Why?
He's being controlled, mind-controlled by the resurrected Shaft who survived the battle in Rondo. The family's greatest champion, the pinnacle of their power, was somehow corrupted and turned.
That's a catastrophic failure. The moment a Belmont stops fighting the chaos or maybe gets too close to it, it consumes them.
Exactly. It's the ultimate vulnerability exposed. Alucard has to fight Richter. Maria gives Alucard special holy glasses that allow him to see past Shaft's illusion. Using them, Alucard breaks the spell controlling Richter.
Okay, so Richter is saved. But what happens when the spell breaks?
The shattering of that illusion literally rips the castle's reality apart. It reveals the true, chaotic heart of the fortress beneath the facade of the inverted castle. Everything flips upside down.
Whoa. So the inverted castle isn't just like a hard mode, it's symbolic.
Totally symbolic. It represents Castlevania itself, solidifying as this creature of chaos, a sentient, malevolent entity reflecting its master's will. Now, with the spell broken, its true upside-down nature is revealed. Alucard has to navigate this even more dangerous version of the castle.
To get to Shaft.
To get to Shaft, yeah. He defeats him. Then he confronts his father, Dracula, who Shaft managed to resurrect amidst the chaos.
And that final confrontation, it's different this time.
It's heartbreaking. Alucard doesn't just fight. He talks to his father. He reminds Dracula of Lisa, of her love for humanity, her final words. And for a moment, just a flicker, Dracula shows remorse, real regret, before Alucard is forced to strike him down.
Wow, an Alucard.
He vanishes again, convinced, more than ever, that his cursed bloodline has no place in the world. He saw firsthand how easily his father's darkness could corrupt even the strongest human heart, even a Belmont.
So Richter's corruption, even though he was saved, that's the big turning point for the family.
It's the definitive turning point. This catastrophic blow, this near fall of their greatest champion, is the reason the Belmont lineage subsequently disappears from the main historical stage for almost 2 centuries. They realize their bloodline, while powerful, is just too great a target, too vulnerable. Richter's failure justifies them relinquishing the vampire killer, passing the burden and the danger to another family.
Okay, so the Belmonts are gone, vanish into the shadows sometime after Richter's near catastrophe. This is mid-1800s now. What happens when Dracula inevitably comes back? Who fights him?
Well, nature abhors a vacuum, right? And so does the fight against Dracula. With the Belmont clan gone, new organizations rise up, people trying to find an institutional way, maybe a less personally risky way to fight the darkness.
Makes sense. Like,
the main one we learn about is the Order of Ecclesia. Think of them as, like, the church's official attempt to fill the void left by the Belmonts. They want a controlled, institutional, maybe even repeatable method to combat Dracula's power.
how do they plan to do that without a Belmont and the whip?
Well, this is where it gets dangerous. They essentially try to fight fire with fire. They create these incredibly powerful magical symbols called dominus glyphs. But the glyphs are derived directly from fragments of Dracula's own power.
Uh-oh. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Playing with the enemy's power.
Exactly. And it leads to tragedy almost immediately. A young woman in the Order, Shanoa, is chosen to be the vessel for Dominus, to wield this immense, dangerous power.
What happens to her?
Her colleague, Albus, realizes just how dangerous Dominus truly is, that it might actually kill the wielder. He steals the glyphs to try and study them, find a safer way. But in the process, during this ritualistic transfer, something goes wrong, and Shanoa inadvertently loses all her memories and emotions. Just gone. The price of trying to contain that much dark power.
So she's this blank slate hunting Albus, who she thinks betrayed her.
Right. And as she hunts him, she makes this incredible discovery. Albus has kidnapped all the residents of a hidden place called Weigel Village.
Why? What's special about them?
They are the last known descendants of the Belmont clan, hiding in secrecy.
Wow. So the Belmonts weren't totally gone, just hidden. Why did Albus need them?
Albus had this radical, dangerous theory. He believed that the concentrated pure blood of the Belmont descendants held the key, that their blood was necessary to control the Dominus glyphs without the dark power consuming and killing the person using them. He was trying to find a way to make it survivable for Shanoa.
But he wasn't the real villain.
No. The real villain turns out to be the leader of the Order of Ecclesia itself, Barlow. He wasn't trying to stop Dracula, he was a secret cultist, using the Order's resources, using Shanoa, planning to sacrifice her to resurrect Dracula. Albus was actually trying to save her all along.
Yeah, and that's twisted. So Shanoa has to fight her mentor.
She defeats Barlow. Then she defeats the newly resurrected Dracula using the Dominus glyphs. But the power starts to consume her, just as Albus feared. In a final act, Albus's spirit sacrifices his own soul in her place, absorbing the fatal backlash and in doing so, restoring her lost emotions. It's a really bittersweet ending for Ecclesia.
So the Belmonts remain hidden, but what about the vampire killer? Richter just put it in a closet.
Not quite. The legacy, the burden, the whip itself is entrusted to the Morris family. They're distant relatives of the Belmont clan, considered maybe a safer lineage, less directly targeted.
Okay, the Morris family. This connects to Bram Stoker.
It does. This allows the game lore to cleverly integrate Bram Stoker's Dracula novel right into the Castlevania canon. They establish that the Quincy Morris from the book, who helped defeat Dracula in 1897, was actually a Belmont descendant.
Ah, cool nod. So the Morrises take up the fight in the 20th century.
Yep. We jump to 1917, World War I. The game Bloodlines. Dracula's niece, this vampire named Elizabeth Bartley, is using the chaos and mass death of the war to harvest souls, trying to speed up her uncle's resurrection.
War is a catalyst again. Who are the heroes?
John Morris, Quincy's son, who now wields the vampire killer, and his friend Eric Lecard, who wields the Alucard spear, a weapon apparently crafted by Alucard himself, seeking revenge for his own family. They travel across war-torn Europe, fighting Bartley's forces, and eventually the newly revived Dracula.
Okay, so John Morris wins. Does he pass the whip on?
He does, to his son Jonathan Morris. Fast forward to 1944, World War II, another global conflict fueling darkness. This is Portrait of Ruin. Dracula's castle is resurrected this time by a vampire artist named Bronner, who's using its power, maybe fueled by the war's suffering.
So Jonathan Morris steps up with a partner.
Right, Jonathan Morris and a young, talented mage named Charlotte Allen. But this is where they discover a terrible truth about the vampire killer itself.
What is it?
Jonathan finds he can't actually unlock the whip's full power. And worse, trying to use it, even partially, is draining his life force.
Why?
Because he's not a direct Belmont descendant. The source material reveals the whip isn't just a tool anymore, it's almost sentient, demanding. It requires the specific Belmont bloodline to be wielded safely at full power. Using it fully as a non-Belmont is slowly killing Jonathan, just like it apparently killed his father, John Morris, after the events of Bloodlines.
Wow. So the whip itself, forged in sacrifice, now demands sacrifice unless your blood is right. The legacy is literally burning the hands that hold it if they're not Belmonts.
Exactly. It's a devastating revelation. They get help from a ghost who calls himself Wind.
Let me guess. Eric Lecard.
Bingo. It's Eric Lecard's spirit lingering. He guides them. Eventually, Jonathan and Charlotte realize they need to perform a specific ritual, confront the whip's memory, basically prove their worth to the whip itself to unlock its potential without it killing Jonathan.
Do they manage it?
They do. They unlock the whip's power safely. They defeat Bronner, the vampire artist, only for Death to show up again. Classic move. Death kills the weakened Bronner and uses that sudden surge of dark energy, that moment of chaos, to resurrect the real Dracula.
Always finding a loophole.
Always. So Jonathan and Charlotte had to immediately turn around and defeat the combined power of Dracula and death, which they managed to do.
Okay, so this whole era, the 19th and 20th centuries, it's about the Belmonts stepping back, other groups trying, and the immense burden the vampire killer places even on their relatives. The curse kind of transcends the direct bloodline.
Perfectly put.
Yeah.
The Belmonts had to vanish to save themselves from corruption, but the weapon they left behind demanded an almost equal measure of sacrifice from their proxies. The fight goes on, but the cost remains incredibly high.
All right, we've covered centuries of fighting, curses, resurrections. We're finally approaching the modern era. Is there a definitive end to this cycle? Does Dracula finally get put down for good?
There is. We arrive at the pivotal turning point. The event that officially ends the physical generational war against Dracula as we know it, the Demon Castle War of 1999.
1999. Okay, is there a game for this one?
Strangely, no. This massive climactic event is often referenced in later games, but it was never actually depicted in one. It's this huge piece of lore that happens off-screen, so to speak.
So what do we know about it? Who fights?
This is when the last known descendant of the main Belmont bloodline finally emerges from the shadows. Julius Belmont.
Julius. The name sounds final.
It feels that way. He doesn't fight alone. He leads this huge international coalition. The church is involved, various governments, specifically a Japanese government agency.
Anyone else we know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Alucard was secretly involved too, working within that Japanese agency under the alias Genya Arikado.
So Julius, Alucard, the church, governments, the whole world versus Dracula.
Pretty much. And Julius achieves what no one before him fully could.
Yeah.
He permanently destroys Dracula.
Permanently. They've destroyed him before.
This time, it's different. The sources suggest Julius somehow severed Dracula's soul from its cycle of reincarnation. Most likely, this involved separating it definitively from the Crimson Stone, breaking that alchemical bond that enabled his return.
And the castle.
And then, crucially, Julius uses immense power, possibly a combined effort from the coalition, to seal the entire castle, Castlevania itself, the physical source and manifestation of Dracula's chaotic power within a solar eclipse.
Sealed inside an eclipse. Wow. Okay, so the physical war, the centuries of hunting and fighting, it's actually over.
It appears to be. The source notes really emphasize the finality. Dracula's ability to resurrect, tied to the stone in the castle, seems to be extinguished. But the conflict doesn't just end. It shifts.
Shifts how? From physical to spiritual.
Exactly. From a physical war to a spiritual and philosophical one. We jump forward again to 2035. A new prophecy emerges concerning the next solar eclipse.
That's the prophet.
It foretells that during this next eclipse, Dracula's true heir, his reincarnation, will be drawn into the sealed castle and inherit his dark power, potentially restarting the whole nightmare.
An heir. Not a descendant, but his actual soul reborn.
That seems to be the implication. And into this setup steps Soma Cruz. He's presented as just a normal teenage exchange student in Japan. But during the 2035 solar eclipse, he's mysteriously transported inside the sealed Castlevania.
And he's got powers.
He discovers he possesses something called the power of dominance. It allows him to absorb the souls of the monsters he defeats within the castle and use their abilities.
Wait, absorbing souls, that sounds familiar.
Very familiar. Inside the castle, Soma encounters several characters. Julius Belmont, who's there investigating but suffering from amnesia.
Yeah.
Yoko Belnades, a descendant of Sifa and a church member, and this enigmatic government agent, Genya Arikado.
Who we know is Alucard, keeping an eye on things.
Right. And eventually, Soma learns the absolutely staggering truth that completely flips the entire saga on its head. Soma Cruz is the reincarnation of Dracula's soul.
What? The hero is Dracula reborn.
Mind-blowing.
Hurrah.
Right? This is the game Area of Sorrow and becomes this intense internal battle. Soma has to fight not just the castle's monsters, but the temptation within himself, the echoes of his past life, the chaos, the darkness trying to reclaim him. He has to fight to prevent becoming the next Dark Lord.
And that power of dominance. It's the Crimson Stone's power, basically.
It seems to be the new form of it, yeah. The ability to absorb souls and wield dark power, just like Matthias Kronqvist did back in 1094. But now, the soul holding that power has a chance for choice.
Does he succeed? Does he resist?
In Aburia, yes. But the fight isn't over. 1 year later, 2036, we get the sequel, Dawn of Sorrow. A cult, led by a woman named Celia Fortner, emerges. They know Soma is Dracula's reincarnation, but they think he's unworthy or resisting too much.
So they try to replace him.
They try to create a new Dark Lord. They find candidates Dmitry Blinov and Dario Bossi, who who were humans born at the exact moment of Dracula's final death in 1999, giving them this kind of spiritual link to his dark power. They try to groom one of them to take the mantle.
So Soma has to fight them and his own inner darkness.
Exactly. The final battle for the entire main canon timeline becomes purely internal for Soma. He faces immense pressure and temptation to embrace his former power, the power of Dracula, maybe believing it's the only way to defeat Celia's cult and protect his friends.
But he doesn't give in.
He resists. He finds another way. By defeating the cult and the dark forces trying to manipulate him, Soma secures his own future. He definitively proves that he is his own person, not just Dracula reborn. He chooses light, chooses his humanity, his free will.
Wow. So the conclusion, it's not a Belmont striking the final blow.
No, it's Dracula himself, through his reincarnation as Soma, who finally ends the curse by choosing not to be Dracula.
The Belmont's whole mission, that 1,000 years of sacrifice and duty, it was all necessary just to hold back the darkness long enough.
Essentially, yes. To delay the chaos, to keep Dracula contained, until his soul could finally be reborn, freed from the deterministic cycle of the Crimson Stone and the castle, and given the chance for genuine free will, the chance to choose differently.
That's a really profound ending to 1,000 years of war. The villain is the only one who could truly end it by choosing redemption.
Yeah, it's a powerful conclusion to that main Igarashi timeline. But, you know, Castlevania is a big franchise. We should probably quickly touch on a couple of the other major continuities that exist, the ones that tell different versions of the story.
Right, because the games and shows don't all fit into that one timeline we just spent all this time mapping out.
Exactly. First, there's the Lords of Shadow saga. This was a major reboot starting in 2010, and it completely reimagines the lore. It frames the whole conflict as this really dark, tragic family drama.
How does it change things? Who's the Belmont here?
The main character is Gabriel Belmont, a knight of the Brotherhood of Light back in 1047. But through a series of tragic events and manipulations, he is the one who eventually becomes Dracula in this universe.
Wait, the Belmont becomes Dracula? That's a total inversion.
It's the ultimate thematic nightmare for the series, right? The hero becomes the monster he hunted, and the tragedy just deepens from there.
How so?
Well, Gabriel, now Dracula, has a son, Trevor Belmont. Trevor grows up hating his father, seeks revenge against him.
So a Belmont hunting Dracula like usual.
Yes, but then Trevor is defeated by his father, Dracula, and Dracula, in this twisted act of mercy or something, resurrects Trevor as a vampire.
Trevor becomes a vampire.
And takes a new name, Alucard. So in this timeline, Alucard is Trevor Belmont, Dracula's vampire son.
Man, that is dark. How does that saga end?
It jumps forward to the modern era, 2057. It concludes with this really reluctant, uneasy alliance between Dracula, Gabriel, and Alucard, Trevor, to fight an even greater evil, Satan himself. It basically concludes their specific twisted family curse with this kind of dark compromise. Very different feel from the main timeline.
Definitely sounds different. What's the other big one? The Netflix show.
Right, the Netflix animated universe, which has been hugely popular and critically acclaimed. It's more of a reimagining and synthesis of the original lore adapted for TV.
Which games does it mainly pull from?
The first series primarily adapts Castlevania III, Dracula's Curse, and also weaves in a lot of elements from Curse of Darkness. So it focuses heavily on that 15th century war after Lisa's execution, with Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard.
How faithful is it?
It keeps the core spirit and characters, but it's definitely notable for its deep characterizations. It really fleshes out the Devil Forge masters Hector and Isaac, giving them much larger, more complex roles than in the games. And it gives Sypha a different background as a speaker, rather than directly tied to the church initially.
Any major omissions?
Yeah, the most notable one is Grant Dynasty, the pirate from the Game Alliance, is completely absent from the show. So it takes significant creative liberties, streamlining things for a TV narrative.
But it captures the essence.
I think so, yeah. And its success shows how enduring these core concepts are. The sequel series, Nocturne, then jumps forward to 1792 during the French Revolution and focuses on Richter Belmont and Maria Renard. So it's continuing to adapt key eras, proving these characters and their eternal struggle resonate across different media and interpretations. Hashtag outro.
Okay, so whether it's the original timeline, the Lords of Shadow reboot, or the Netflix show, this saga has some serious legs. If we try and synthesize this whole millennium of conflict from the main timeline, though, the complexity is just wow.
It really is breathtaking when you lay it out chronologically. You see how things that maybe started as simple game mechanics evolved into these really crucial character or lore components.
Like the vampire killer. It goes from just a whip of alchemy to this holy weapon forged in tragedy, then later it's almost sentient, demanding, draining life force.
Exactly. Or Castlevania itself.
Yeah.
It goes from just being Dracula's fortress to this recurring creature of chaos, an entity that reflects its master's will, even turning inside out. These concepts deepen over time.
And that central conflict, we said at the start, it was born from grief. Leon's duty versus Matthias's nihilism, and the whole 1,000 years becomes this exploration of the massive personal cost of that duty.
Curses, possession, psychological torment, family betrayal, sacrificing loved ones.
Yeah.
The Belmonts and those connected to them, like the Morrises or Shinoa, they pay an unbelievable price.
But ultimately, that main timeline suggests all of it. The generational hunting, the sacrifices, passing the torch. It was all necessary just to hold the line, to delay the inevitable darkness.
It seems that way, to hold back the tide of chaos, the cycle driven by the Crimson Stone, just long enough.
Long enough for what? For Dracula's soul to finally get a do-over?
Long enough for his soul, to be reborn as Soma Cruz, finally free from the deterministic curse of the stone in the castle, reborn with the capacity for genuine free will.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, thinking about this epic story?
Well, it leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought, doesn't it? What does it truly say about the nature of eternal evil, about this dark lord? If the only person who could really defeat him, end the cycle for good, was the villain himself.
By choosing redemption.
By choosing redemption. The Belmont's 1,000-year mission wasn't necessarily to destroy the darkness utterly. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe their mission was simply to buy time until the darkness could choose to save itself.
An incredible thought to wrap up 1,000 years of hunting monsters. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Belmont legacy and the sprawling history of Castlevania.
Yeah, this was a fun one to unravel.
We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.